Good evening, everyone.
Couple Tov, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. Uh, hey, okay. Yeah, so we got to go to the next chapter. See what's there. This is a good one. I like this one. This is a fun one. You're going to enjoy this one. Okay, here we go. So it says here, right, מצוות יום טוב לחלק אותו חציו לבית המדרש וחציו לאכילה. Right, ושתייה. So it says, right, what's the proper mode, of the celebration of Yom Tov? How do you do it? So it says like this, okay? Half of the day should go to Torah study, Bet HaMidrash, right? You go to the, yeshiva, right? The study hall, whatever, right? And you study Torah. Chetzio v'achila and shtia. And half of it goes to, right, eating and drinking, in other words, the meals, right? So 50-50, right? That's good. It's a good balance there. Okay. So ואף על פי שצריך כל אדם לצמצם יציאותיו, אל יצמצם בהוצאת יום טוב. Oh, so he says, right, that, when it comes to expenditures, right, a person should be a little bit frugal, but not when it comes to Yom Tov, right? You got to be splurge for Yom Tov, don't be cheap, say, I can't buy this, I can't afford that, I can't do this, can't do that, right? Don't be so frugal, So why is that? Because, it shouldn't look like a weekday, your Yom Tov table. Just like Shabbat, right? More or less, right? It should look special, So it should look like a festive meal, not not a skimpy lunch, that you eat every day, right? That's the idea. So you got to splurge, right? Buy all the good things, and don't worry about the money. Where is the money gonna come from? It'll come. Don't worry. Everything will be good. As they say right today, don't cheap out. Right? Okay. Good. So וצריך לכבדו ולענוגו כדרך שמענג בכבד שבת. So he says, look what he says exactly, right? He says, you got to do it, honor it, just like you honor Shabbat. Oh, so there you go, right? It puts it on equal footing. So you can't argue with that. So now he reminds you, right? So what about Shabbat, right? What's going on with that? The Ilchot Shabbat Katabtiv, it says, I already wrote in laws of Shabbat. In other words, I wrote in Shabbat already, but what has to be done, So, if you just want like a rundown of what we're saying, buy all the good stuff, all the good foods, don't skimp, right? Buy all the things that you like to eat, you enjoy, all those things, right? And don't think, well, I can't afford it, it's too much, That's not the way to do it. Okay, so if you want to skimp somewhere else, right? Not over there. Okay, so יש אומרים שצריך לעשות בו גימל סעודות. Oh, so this is interesting, right? Okay, before we get to that, let's go to Bet Yosef, right? And we'll come back to that. Okay. So it says Bet Yosef here. He brings the source for this, right? Where is this? Pukta de Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Oh, this is a famous one, right? In the Gemara there's a machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua regarding this issue, right? How should a person spend Yom Tov, in terms of the timing, How much do you put a lot to this? How much do you allot to that? How do you balance it out, right? So what does it say there? And also Psachim, right? Same thing. So we have two Gemarot, right, that talk about this. So he says, right, Halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua. So what does that mean? Right? He said, half goes to Hashem and half goes to you, right? What does that mean? Right? What goes to Hashem? Learning Torah, right? Prayers, right? That's to Hashem. Half goes to you, right? So you have your seudot, right? You have your meals, right? That's for you, right? For your stomach, right? For your belly. Oh, right. So there you go. It's also for your soul, of course. So it's not only physical, right? It's a mitzvah. So there you go, right? Yeah. Tanya beperek hakore, right? So we learned in this perek Omed, right? Megillah, Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, B'Yom Tov Me'acharin Lavo, right? Me'acharin said, right? So another thing, right? He wants to write here is that on Yom Tov, it's a little bit of a different kind of a timetable, different kind of a right, pace. Good word, right? It's a different pace on Yom Tov. So what does that mean, pace? That means that when we come to shul a little bit later, After all, we want to sleep a little bit, right, to rest, get some slumber, right, so get a nice nap, here and there, right, whatever. So that's why we come a little bit late to shul, right? And so therefore, right, same thing on Shabbat, by the way, right? Same idea. There's written there as well. So what does that mean, right? That let's say, if you do shachrit every day, at 7:00, right? So on Yom Tov, Shabbat, you could do like 7:30, splurge a little bit, whatever, right? Treat yourself a little bit, right? That's the idea. Same thing also in the evening, when you come, come a little bit late for shul. They start mincha a little bit later. So we're like we're going at a relaxed pace, nice slow, holiday schedule, right? Okay, so and also we come out late, right? I'm sorry, we come out early, he says, right? Which is nice, that's good, right? So what does that mean? We don't take too long, like we kind of like we the pace goes briskly, right? That's pretty much what he's saying here. Oh, Rashi explains מאחרים לבוא לבית הכנסת צריך לטרוח בסעודת יום טוב, כך מפורש במסכת סופרים. So Rashi says, right, why do people come late, to shul? Because they're cooking, for Yom Tov, So, they're busy with all kinds of preparations. Whatever. Okay, that's good. And he says also we go out, like earlier from the shul. Why is that? So he says we want to do, Yom Tov, enjoy it, a little bit, right? You don't want to be, in shul all night, You got to go home and eat, right? That's the idea. Okay. So then he goes on. Right? As we said, right? In terms of weekdays, you can be frugal, no problem, right? Go on a diet, eat less, whatever, right? But bring down your carbs, whatever, right? No problem. But when it comes to Shabbat, Yom Tov, you got to splurge. That's what we said, right? So where is the source for that? Right? Sham Betzad, some of them Betzad, Tetvav Amud Bet. Amarem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So Hashem tells, right, to Israel, to the Jews, Lavu alai b'kiddushu ayom ve'eminu bi ve'ani porea. Right. So this is a famous one, right? What does this mean? This Gemara. It means Hashem tells you, listen, if you don't have enough money to make your, purchases for Yom Tov and Shabbat, don't worry, it's on me, it's on the house. What does that mean, right? Go borrow money, and and buy your stuff, right? Your produce. I'll pay you back. Don't worry, I'll reimburse you. Guaranteed, right? On the house, right? So that's a guarantee, right? Basically, right? When it comes to expenditures for Shabbat and Yom Tov and also other things we're going to discuss, whether it's whatever, either now or some other time, right? So those are reimbursed, those things, right? You get a refund, 100% refund, right? It's more reliable than the IRS, than the refund of the IRS. Believe me when I tell you. Okay. Yeah. So there you go, right? So that's the thing, right? So what does a smart person do? He knows, right? The more you spend, the more you get refunded, reimbursed. So why not spend more? It's on the house, So why worry? So he's telling you, right? Go borrow some money, Yeah, go for it, Go to your neighbor, right? Borrow, $200, right? And do your, shopping, and don't worry, I'll pay you back, and you'll pay him back, right? Okay. So it says, right? Believe in me. You have to believe. You know what they used to say, right? The Americans, in the right deal. You gotta believe, right? You gotta believe that. Right? You gotta believe that Hashem will pay you back. Ve'ani porea, right? Says, I'll pay you back. Don't worry. So he says, explained already in the laws of Shabbat, right? This whole concept, right over there in chapter 242. Just in case you want to peep over there, right? Check over there what's going on. Okay, so that's the story there. Right? And that's what the Torah meant, right? That he wrote in the laws of Shabbat. It's in that chapter over there. Okay, very good. So then we said, right, you got to do Yom Tov just like you do Shabbat, same style, banquet, banquet style. Splurge. All out, right? So it says regarding that, right? It brings a source for that. That's what it says in Rambam Perek Vav. Just like it's a mitzvah to honor Shabbat, right? With the good, all the good foods, right? All the good drinks also, right? Don't forget the wine, excuse me. Yeah. Right? Don't forget the wine. Okay, so, right? Kol Yamim Tovim, right? Also same thing in Yom Tov, same thing, right? No difference, it's all the same. Right? Shenema, right? As it says in the Pasuk, in Yeshayahu, Likdosh Adonai Mechubad Bechol, right? Yamim Tovim Neemar Bahem. It says also Yom Tov. It says Mikra Kodesh, right? It's a holy convocation, right? It's a translation of the Sansina, whatever, right? The old translations. וכן ראוי לאדם שלא יסעוד בהרבה ימים טובים, mina mincha umara. Another thing he says, right, is that since we want to honor, right, the Yom Tov, with all the good foods and everything. So you're not how are you going to enjoy all the good foods, right? You got to be hungry, you got to have an appetite. So therefore, he says, right, that don't have a meal, after right, too late in the afternoon, right, when the time of mincha time comes, right, which is about like the ninth hour, 9.5 hours, right? So once that time comes, let's say, for argument's sake, right, this is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Something like that, right? Depending on the season, right? So once 3 o'clock in the afternoon comes, right, it's a mitzvah to refrain from having like a meal, after that. You can snack a little bit, right? Have a banana or something, whatever. That you can do, have a yogurt. That'll be okay. You'll be hungry anyway, right? So you'll get hungry, but don't eat something heavy. Don't eat a meal, right? Because otherwise you're not gonna have any appetite for Yom Tov or Shabbat, right? Whatever it is, it's all the same. So then, how are you gonna enjoy it? That's the thing, right? Okay, so good. So then says the tour. Right? Some say you have to do 3 meals on Yom Tov, right? And that's what the Rambam says. But it says the truth is, right? The Bit Yosef says that it's not really, it's not really the halacha. As you know, right? I hope you know. On Yom Tov we do 2 meals. We don't do 3, right? So we don't pass like the Rambam here. We don't do 3 meals on Yom Tov. You're not obligated to do it. You can do if you want. You want to do an extra one. Nobody's going to stop you. But you're not obligated. 2 is the obligation. Yeah. So what does that mean? 1 at night and 1 right after you come back from shul, right? The usual stuff. Okay, very good, right? So what I mean to say is right after in the morning when you come back from shul, right, or whatever in the afternoon, depending on how late you pray, right? I hope you're not getting back too late from the shul. Right? It shouldn't go that late, as we already said, right? Okay. There are some shuls in America, they get out like 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's like, what is this? Like, what kind of prayers is that? What are they doing there? What it's Yom Kippur? What are they doing? Why are they holding you up until 12:30, 1 o'clock? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Um, like when you get a chance to eat. But in Israel, Baruch Hashem, they do it the right way. They pray earlier. 7:30, let's say, right? And by 10 o'clock they're done. So like you can already make kiddush. Like 10:30, you're making kiddush already. That's the way it should be. Why pray so late? What do why do you need this for? So the rabbi stands there, gives some kind of a sermon, and then this guy talks and this guy talks. They waste so much time. These shuls in America, unfortunately, it's a total waste of time. Half the time that they're there, it's like totally wasted. You know, so that also has to be considered. All these things. If you're a woman, you could just leave early. You don't have to stay there until the end anyway. So just get out and go. What can you do? Okay. The truth is, women don't have to go at all anyway to shul. They're not obligated to go to shul. Yeah. Yeah. The married ladies, they never go to shul anyway. The religious families. Who goes to shul? No such a thing like that. They're all home, preparing the food, getting the table ready, setting the house, setting this, setting that, right? Who has time to go to shul? Okay, right. So that's the story there. Let's go on. כתב הקולבו, right? says the קולבו, שיש לכתבו שהסעודה השלישית, שכתבו סעודה שלישית ביום טוב, היא כשאוכלים תבשיל אחר לבין הראשון, ואף על פי שאין מפסיק זה ברכות במזון, ולא החמירו לעשותן רק בשבת. So he says, right, this rabbi, that there are some customs, on Yom Tov, to do like something extra, but the truth is, right, We're not stringent about that. So what does that mean? We do 2 meals. That's it. It's good enough. The meals are so big on Yom Tov. Believe me, you don't need more than two. As it is, you're already bloated. So what else do you need? Okay, right. So the only reason we do 3 meals on Shabbat is because we're obligated to do so. Otherwise we wouldn't do that either. Like, why do you need a third meal for? What do you need it for? It's a mitzvah. That's why we do it. Okay. So right, ematay mutar litanot b'yom tov b'nitbar b'ilchot Shabbat. So it says, when is it allowed, right, to fast on Yom Tov, right? That was already explained on laws of Shabbat. So we already mentioned, right, that sometimes if you have like a very scary dream, right, you're allowed to fast on Yom Tov and Shabbat. We mentioned that already. Okay, right. Shabbat binyan. So it says this, the equal Yom Tov and Shabbat are equal regarding that matter. It's all the same, right? Okay. So now there's another question, right? And this is an interesting one. Right? Are you all obligated to eat bread, for the meals on Yom Tov, just like Shabbat, right? On Shabbat you have to have bread. It's not optional. If you didn't have bread, you didn't fulfill your obligation. So but keep that in mind. You got to wash your hands and have bread. But when it comes to Yom Tov, right, the truth is there's a machloket, if you're obligated or not. So he says over here, right, Katabti b'siman kuf pechet. I already wrote this in chapter 188, right? Interesting. V'sham katabti im chol hamoed dino k'yom tov. And also there it says I wrote also regarding im chol hamoed, right, is also like Yom Tov regarding the meals, whatever. Right, or not, right? In other words, you have to have bread. So, just to recap it, right, for you guys, what is halakha regarding this, right? So the truth is, right, that as we said, regarding Yom Tov, there is a machloket, if you're obligated to have bread or not, because there's two different gemarot. One says yes, one says no. So it seems like, the later authorities, right, that we rely on, they seem to say that you have to have bread on Yom Tov. But by the way, it doesn't mean you have to have a lot of bread. Just one kazait, a little, half an egg. It's not a big deal. So like one slice of bread is enough. If you want to have one slice, that's good enough for you. Good for you, right? You don't need more than that. Or one little roll, that's good. So you're done. So if you don't want to have any more than that, it's fine. Whatever makes you happy, right? But you gotta have a little bit something, a little bread there. Yeah. So in other words, on Yom Tov, we are also obligated to have bread. But when it comes to Chol HaMoed, right, we're not obligated to have bread. So it's only optional, If you want to have bread, you can. If you don't want, okay, avoid it, right? Whatever, right? Whatever makes you happy.
Is the holiday meal required on Cornwood though?
Right. So the truth is, it's not a requirement, but it's a mitzvah, It's like, so it's like proper to do so, to have meals on Chol HaMoed. At least one nice meal, meat, something, right? I'm talking to the wrong person. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I apologize. I hope I didn't insult you.
Not insult.
Okay, so it slipped out. But right, you get the point, right? Whatever you like to eat, whatever. Right? So your meat, let's say it's fish, salmon, whatever your substitute there, right? Whatever, right? So that's whatever you like to eat, right? That's what you do, So Chol HaMoed, a person should try to have a nice meal, like at least once a day, but it's not an obligation, mamash, like really, really obligation. It's not. So let's say, he just wants to like snack all day, he can do that. He can get away with that. But it's not the proper way to do it, To at least have one nice meal, it's proper to have at least one. At least one. Okay, good. But as we said, right, you're not obligated to have bread, That's the thing. So if you want to have, just like let's say rice, and whatever, it's the main dish, I'm not going to say the M word, right? But but you get the point, right? That's the way it's done. Okay, so let's go on. Krasinan pek kol kitveh. So it says, right? It says in this parak in Shabbat, Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Bet, Amar Rabbi Abba, all right, it says this rabbi, Chayav Adam livtzoa al shti kikarot b'Shabbat, my tama. So, right, we talked about this last week, right? That, on Shabbat you have to have 2 loaves, right? When you bless, right? You need 2 loaves, right? Not like that guy who forgot to make his eruv, right? That poor guy, right? But we're talking about, a regular guy, right? So who hasn't, bread, he has enough loaves. So yeah, of course, right? We have to bless on 2 loaves of bread. But what do we call that? Lechem Mishneh, right? So right. So it says, right, that right? Because it says, right, in the Chumash that Hashem gave them, when they were getting the man, in the desert there, right? So they were getting a double portion on Friday to eat on Shabbat. So that's to commemorate that miracle, whatever, right, that we had. That's why we bless on 2 loaves on Shabbat and Yom Tov, right? It's okay. Katav Rif b'perek Arve Psachim, right? It says the Rif in this perek Pirshu Rabbanan, and the rabbis explain, right? So the Biyamim Tovim Nami Mainam Ditzol Shtekirot. So they say, right, same thing applies to Yom Tov as well. You got to have two loaves when you bless, right? תיקח יובה בשבת משום דלא הווה מן נחית בשבת אלא הווה נחית בערב בשבת זוגי זוגי ובימים טובים נמי לא הווה נחית. So he just explained what I just told you, right? This whole what happened was in the desert, right? The whole thing just told you that. אלא הווה נחית בערב יום טוב זוגי זוגי כמו דהווה נחית בערב שבתות וילקח בעינן למבצע ביום טוב אל תרתי ריפתא. So therefore he says on Yom Tov you have to use 2 loaves of bread. Shilemta, right? But they have to be complete loaves, right? Not fragmented loaves, right? We don't want that. Save your fragmented loaves for the weekday. It's not good for Shabbat and Yom Tov, right? Okay. Just like Shabbat. וכך כתב הרמב"ם, this was says Rambam, מנחות שבת, לא עזב שבת. וכתב גם כן שצריך לקבוע בכל סעודה היין כמו בשבת. Right, so the Rambam has this famous thing, he says that every meal you have, for Shabbat, you should have some wine. Even for the 3rd meal, he says, like drink a cup of wine. You can do it, right? Don't worry, right? It'll be fine. So, right, it just makes it festive, festive meal, when you're drinking wine. So, that makes it special. So, yeah, according to Rambam, right, you should have a meal, you should have wine in every meal. Whether it's Yom Tov or Shabbat, right, same thing, it's all the same. So, some people, by the way, understand that Rambam, when he talks about Silah Shlishi, the 3rd meal on Shabbat, he says you should drink a cup of wine. Some people understand that you have to make Kiddush, for the 3rd meal. But the truth is, he doesn't say you have to make Kiddush. All he says is you have to drink wine, like drink a cup of wine. That's what he says, so Kiddush we don't make on the 3rd meal. We only make it in the morning, when we come back from shul, right? We make it there. That's good enough. It lasts you the whole day. Okay. Very nice. Okay, so that's the whole Bet Yosef, right? That was a mouthful. What can I tell you? It looks like there's another piece here somewhere. Okay, let's see. One more piece. This one. Okay, so what does it say here? Katwa God Maimoniot, right? Says this rabbi, Perek Vav Minchot Yom Tov, right? And he's a commentary on the Rambam, laws of Yom Tov. Karasinan B'Yushami, right? Says he brings the Yerushalmi, Perek Kamat Kiddushin, first Perek of Kiddushin. Be'ahid Da'aminan Ha'achin Shechaku, right? That which we said there. Rabbi Mona Omer Kli Regel Cholkin Kli Shabbat Mbaya. מכאן משמע שבגדי יום טוב יהיו טובים מבגדי שבת. Right, so this is an interesting thing, interesting little nuance here going on. So he says, right, from this Yerushalmi, what do we learn? Implies here that your clothing for Yom Tov should be even better than the clothing you wear on Shabbat. Interesting. So the truth is, that is like a custom, but not everybody observes this. First of all, not everybody knows this halakha. And even the ones who know, sometimes they're a little bit lazy to observe it, you know? Like for instance, right, on Shabbat, what do you wear, right? A man, right? What does he wear? He wears, a jacket, right? A tie, right? Okay, right? Whatever, right? So what do you add on Yom Tov, right, to make it better than that? So, some people get creative, they put some cufflinks on, or whatever, right? So handkerchief, right, in their pocket to make it a little bit fancier, if you know what I mean. They add that little element there. So that's like a way to do it, if you want to do this mitzvah to make Yom Tov a little bit fancier than Shabbat in terms of the clothing. Yeah, it's known, this halacha is known. Not to everybody. Okay. Uh, yeah. So I guess a person, should, if he wants to do this mitzvah, as we said, he's got to buy that little extra thing, little ornament there, to make it a little bit more fancy. How would a woman do it? She could put some jewelry, some extra jewelry, put something extra there. That would do the trick. That's nice. You got my approval. Another piece of jewelry. I'm down for that. I'm good for it. Okay, right. So that's the story there. Good. Let's go on a little bit, right? So it says, um, Tanya bepek makom shenahagu, right? There's another Gemara he brings over here in Psachim, right? Right to there. Haoseh melacha be'arbe Shabbatot ve'yamim tovim min ha'mincha l'mala eno ro'eh siman bracha, right? So this is a famous, right, Gemara and halacha. What's the halacha? That a person who does labor, right, from mincha time and onwards, erev Shabbat and erev Yom Tov, that he won't see any blessing from that money, right? So it says, we already explained this in the laws of Shabbat, right? 251, if you want to look over there, right? So a person should be careful about this, it doesn't apply to everything, by the way. There's rules about this. But anyway, right, the point is, you shouldn't be like, at your job, like too late, and still, at your doing work at this time of day, Erev Shabbat, Erev Yom Tov. It's too late already. And why is that? Because they want you to prepare. So when are you going to prepare? If you come home, 1 or 2 hours before the holiday starts, that's not enough time to prepare. You rarely get started like that. So that's why the rabbis didn't want this. The people are doing labor, right, right before Yom Tov, right before Shabbat, because you don't have time to prepare anything. This is the problem. So we're not talking here, about like driving a car or something, right? That's allowed, or cutting your nails, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about like real labor, kind of things, where it's like going to take your time away from preparation for Shabbat and Yom Tov, things like this. So a person has to be careful about that, try to get home on time, right, and do the preparations. Otherwise, you're gonna come in late, you're gonna get frustrated, and start yelling at your spouse, right? Whatever, right? Getting nervous, right? All kinds of stuff. You don't want that. So, especially if I'm a spouse, I don't want that, right? So, I don't want to be yelled at by anybody. I'm joking. All right, so that's the story there, right? So, we got to be careful with that. Nobody likes to be yelled at, not men and not women. Okay. Okay, so let's go to Shulchan Aruch. We're done with that. Yeah, it looks like we gotta bring it up because this is a new chapter here. So we'll delete this one, the old one, and come in with the new. Out with the old, in with the new. Final chapter of Yom Tov. Okay, so let's take a look. It says, Mitzvot Yom Tov lechalko l'chatzio lebet hamidrash v'chatzio l'achila, right? Eshtia. As we said, what's the proper mitzvah on Yom Tov? Right, half the time to bet midrash. What does that mean? Torah study and prayers, of course, right? All those things, the spiritual. And then, half the time to eating and drinking, right? Having your meals. So that's a nice, allotment, allocation of the both resources, right? They're there, both qualities. That's the way it should be, more or less. Don't keep a stopwatch. It's not, we don't mean like that. Right? More or less, right? Half and half. Nobody's watching the clock. So V'ali tzamtzem be'otzat Yom Tov, right? Another thing, he mentions here, as we mentioned already, is that don't be frugal with the expenditures. Go all out. And buy what you want to buy to enjoy. Pretend like it's your daughter's wedding. You know what I mean? You're going all out. You don't want to be skimping on the wedding. So. But so he says you gotta honor it, and do all the pleasures, just like Shabbat. What does it mean, pleasure? In essence, it means to enjoy the meals, right? That's what we're talking about. There's also other pleasures, but that's what we're talking about here. Okay, very good. So says the Ramah here. Asur lechol mincha or mala. Right, he brings that what we just saw. Right, you shouldn't eat after time of mincha. B'yom tov, right? Erev Yom Tov. Just like Shabbat, right? So So what does that mean? Don't eat meals, after that time, right? The truth is, it's not really forbidden, So what the Ramah says here is not exactly precise. It's not forbidden, but there is a mitzvah not to do this, right? But prohibition there is not. Okay, so מיהו אם ערב יום טוב שבת יכול לקיים מצוות שלישית ויאכל מעט פת לכבוד יום טוב, right? So now he gets into an interesting thing, right? Which is that, let's say Shabbat comes before Yom Tov, right? So Yom Tov is Sunday. So as we said, on Shabbat we eat 3 meals. So that means we're having a meal in the afternoon right before Yom Tov. So how are you going to be hungry for Yom Tov if you eat a meal right before? How are you going to handle that? How are you going to hack it? So he says, what you do is you have to have it because it's a mitzvah. So therefore, the proper thing to do is to have like a small little thing, little kazait, right? Little something there. This way, you will be somewhat hungry for the Yom Tov meal. So that's the way to do it, right? A smart person, he knows how to balance these things out, right? To allocate all the measures and to do it, measure everything properly. There's a saying, in Hebrew, it says "Chacham eina berosho," right? In the Torah, it says this, right? What does that mean? The wise person, he knows how to look in the future, and see what he needs to do in order to come up with the proper results. He plans it out, He gauges everything, So he knows this will lead to that will lead to this, right? So he knows how to balance everything out. So that's called a wise man. Somebody knows how to be balanced. Okay, so it goes on here, right? The Rama, mitzvah lelush pat, So he says, right, it's a mitzvah to, this is right, this is good stuff here, right? So it says, it's a mitzvah to make chalot, that's what he's saying, right? For, Be'erev Yom Tov, Lichvod Yom Tov, right? So what does that mean? You're gonna knead the dough, right, before Yom Tov and bake it, right, so you can have it on Yom Tov. So there is a mitzvah to do that. A lot of ladies, they like to make chalot, right? So all the power to you. If you like to do it, I'm all with you. A lot of ladies like to go to the store, and buy. That's okay. If they want to do that, it's okay. It's fine. There's no obligation to do this. To bake, for Yom Tov or Shabbat. It's just a mitzvah. What does that mean? So you get reward for that. For making and taking challah also, right? One mitzvah leads to another. So it's all good.
Is it just minhag to make the holiday challahs round, or is that actually mentioned?
Yeah, that's a good question. The truth is, we don't find this in the halacha. It's just probably Ashkenazi custom, for some reason or other. I'm not really sure why they do that. You have to ask around with your Ashkenazi friends. They'll probably give you a nice reason for that.
I will ask.
Not really sure.
Probably just to differentiate it between the regular Shabbat ones.
There may be something to it, You never know. There's always something there. There is, okay, what can I tell you? But I can tell you, my Rabbi Marano, Shalom, Rav Ovadia, he didn't eat chalot for Shabbat and Yom Tov. He ate pitot. So he wasn't into that thing, He was totally Sephardi, like he didn't have one drop of Ashkenazi blood in him. So he didn't have any chalot. So what do you call it? The truth is, that when I was there in the neighborhood there, I was in the neighborhood with the rabbi there. So there's one guy that I went to, he's one of the rabbis in Kollel. So he tells me, he says, I went to his house for some reason to visit him, whatever. And he tells me, he says, do you know? He says, my wife makes the pitot that Maran eats, for Shabbat. He says, she takes it from my wife. I was like, are you kidding me? So he told me, right, what kind of pitot the rabbi likes. Homemade, pitot, homemade, right? Not from the store. Not frozen, right, from the freezer, right? So right. So the way she made it, apparently, he said that she made it very special, not a regular pita. So she would cover like one side of it with like saffron, some kind of spice, and the other one with right zatar, God knows, something like that, right? Whatever. It was like a spicy kind of pita, like what we call today a lafa, those big ones, So that's what the rabbi ate for Shabbat. A spicy lafa, homemade, right, from some Rebbetzin, in Jerusalem. There, that's what he ate. So okay, right, to each his own, right? It's all good. It's all good. Whatever you enjoy, whatever you like, you can eat, whatever it is. Right? Okay. He was Iraqi, Iraqis, you show them a challah, they're gonna say, "What is this? A dessert? Is a cake? What is this?" They're not gonna know what you're talking about. The Iraqis don't eat chalot. Okay, so nice. Okay, good. I'll tell you guys a funny story about this. One person, spoke to me. He was like a newlywed, just got married, So he was a Sephardi guy, and he married an Ashkenazi girl, So what do you call it? So they have their first Shabbat together, after the wedding, right? Oh wow, the first Shabbat, right? Newlyweds. So apparently, right, this guy he bought, some pitot, right, for the Shabbat. So his wife sees the pitot. She tells him, "Where's the chalot?" She didn't understand, like what's going on. You bring pitot for Shabbat. So she thought, because of her culture, that you cannot have pitot for Shabbat. You have to have chalot, That's what she thought. Can you imagine? She thought that was a halacha. So they got into a little spot, because their first Shabbat together. Incredible. It's so funny. Oh my God. That's why, the truth is it's better, to marry your own kind. A Sephardi should marry a Sephardi. Ashkenazi should marry Ashkenazi. It just comes out better that way. Because the culture, the folklore, the customs, right? All that stuff. Yeah, it comes out easier, one time Maran told us that, the rabbi, he says, it's better to marry into your own community, like something close to you, the closest you can find to your community. Because the culture is similar, so you understand each other. It turns out to be more convenient like that, whatever, right? Because if you marry an Ashkenazi guy, right, and you show him some spicy fish, for Shabbat, he'll he may have to drink some water, and he may start coughing on the table, Oh, he won't understand why the fish is so spicy. So you gotta watch out. You gotta know your customer. I'm sorry.
That's so funny, Rabbi.
Okay, that's the way it is, in life. What can I tell you? If you're a spicy guy, marry a spicy girl, If you're a bland guy, marry a bland girl. Otherwise, you're gonna suffer. The way it is, just practical advice. What can you do, right? Okay. So it's so true though, it's very, very true. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of marriages like between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, and they got divorced because they couldn't get along, just the culture was too different. It just sometimes doesn't go so well. It's allowed in halakha, there's no prohibition. But sometimes the results are not so good. No guarantees, you know what I mean? Take it at your own risk, as they say, right? At your own risk. Okay. So yeah, that's the story there. Let's go on a little bit. Yeah, I guess we'll finish it off here, this halakha. So as we said, right, the Ramah says here it's a mitzvah to make, chalot, or pitot, right, whatever your culture is, right, whatever it may be, right. But it's not an obligation. Mitzvah, there is a mitzvah, for the sake of enjoying it, right, or also for to take out the challah, right, all kinds of good things there come out of it. It's all good. So it goes on here. The chayav livtzoa al shtik kikra, that says Shulchan Aruch, right? As we said, you have to also use 2 loaves, right, to bless on the meals of Yom Tov, just like Shabbat. You need 2 loaves. And also he says, look what it says. Also he says every seudah try to have some wine, right? Obviously, this only applies to people who like wine, because if you don't like it, you're not obligated to drink it, just because it says so. It doesn't work like that. If you like wine, so you should try to have it at every meal. There you go. Black and white, right? As I said, right? The general rule is, whatever you don't like, you don't have to eat it. Don't do anybody a favor. If you don't like it, don't eat it. If you don't like to do something drinks, don't drink it. Just because everybody else does doesn't mean you have to drink it also. To each his own. Whatever, right? Okay, good. So, right, that's the story there. So he says, right, so he says the custom is we don't do 3 meals on Yom Tov, right? As we said, right? Only 2, That's the custom, If you want to do more, you could, you get hungry. Let's say you're hungry, right? Some people, they have a quick digestive system, so they get hungry like every 2-3 hours, There are people like this. I've seen them. Like sometimes I tell them, didn't we just eat? Like, you want to eat again? No, we just ate 2 hours ago. Yeah, I'm hungry. Hungry? What? Hungry? How are you hungry? We just ate. Because they just digest their food very fast. So what can you do, right? Everybody's got their own thing. So it said in parentheses here, right? Right? He brings that thing also we mentioned, which is that we come to shul a little bit later, right? Marin that said then we come out a little bit earlier. Simchat Yom Tov, right? To do Simchat Yom Tov. So that's the thing, some shuls, unfortunately, they hold you up there, for 4 hours in the shul, like on Yom Tov, Shabbat. What do I need 4 hours for? How much prayers am I doing, for God's sakes? These people they're not normal. I'm sorry to tell you, but they just waste time. 2 hours is prayers and 2 hours is waste. That's what it is. Unfortunately, you really shouldn't need more than 2 hours of prayers for Shabbat or Yom Tov. Either way, it shouldn't be more than 2 hours. If they are doing more than 2 hours, they're wasting time. That's what it is. They're keeping you there for no reason, and it's not a mitzvah. Believe me when I tell you. So I can tell you, for example, Maran, my Rabbi, mashallah, I'll tell you, he was a master, at planning everything out very, very well, great genius mind, great tzaddik. Everything was planned out so carefully. So, what we would do, by his minyan, on weekdays we prayed at 7:00, right? Shachrit, and Shabbat we did 7:30. So he did, in order to do this mitzvah, there's a mitzvah to come a little bit later. So we will start 7:30 on Yom Tov Shabbat, right? But here's the thing. This is the caveat, okay? Guess what time he would finish the prayers? Want to take a guess? Starting at 7:30. What time is he finished?
8:30.
9:15 out the door, right? So what does that mean? Less than 2 hours. Out the door. 1 hour and 45 minutes. In America, this would be like a record, record. It would be put in the Guinness Book of Records if somebody did that. But it was a beautiful prayer, not rushed. It was gorgeous, beautiful chazan. Everything was beautiful, but with just no wasting time. That's what it is, When you waste time, it's not a good thing. It's not the way to serve God. You got to always keep moving, It's kinetic energy, as they say in science, right? You got to keep moving all the time. Don't stand still. Don't stop. You got to keep moving. That's the way you serve God. Constantly going from one mitzvah to another, not stopping and daydreaming. What are you looking at the ceiling for? What do you see up there? What, do you see some mosquitoes in the ceiling? What are you looking up there for? Come on, get moving. Let's do the next mitzvah. You're done. Go to the next thing. Don't daydream. That's what they do. Some of these shuls, unfortunately. And that's why they waste time. So much time was wasted. So that's the thing, So everything has to be planned out properly. I can tell you, the bottom line is that minyan that Maran had, in his synagogue, which was in his house also, really. It was like being in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple, The third temple was rebuilt. That's what it felt like there, Like we were in the third temple. Because it was so holy, and it was so joyous. It was just the most beautiful atmosphere. I don't think I can ever recreate, that atmosphere that we had in that minyan. It was something, it stays in my soul forever, it'll never come out. So, okay, we'll end on that note, right? We'll continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch. We'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll finish off this last chapter, sooner or later. We'll get it done.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
Laila
you.
Tov.
Thank you so much.
God bless.